Okay, I made a short video titled "Why Do We Have to Exist is Not a Negative Question," or "Is Not Being Negative," or something along those lines. I want to elaborate on it a little bit. I want to clarify why it's not negative and what about it is actually wholly practical. If there's even the slightest smidgen of being here, but then also feeling like you don't want to be here, but then you got to be here, but you don't want to be here, but then you got to be here, but you don't want to be here. Whatever, for whatever reason, maybe it's health condition, maybe maybe you feel like you don't have a lot of cool clothes. I don't know. It could be any reason you want. Maybe it's like you wanted to be a championship football player and for whatever reason it's not in the cards. And it all points back to this awareness of, I guess, what's sometimes referred to as self-love, like loving yourself, right? And in this particular case, I would like to redefine it as love of the self, because what we're really talking about here is the self. And actually, if we want to get even more specific, the self, the universal self, is synonymous with love. So the self is love, and the love is self. Now, the word self is kind of a little bit confusing, but in this case, I'm referring to capital S self, which is synonymous with God. Synonymous meaning the same word. Capital S self is the same word as God. Now, some people don't like the word God, and I understand. Because, well, here's my guess as to why they don't like the word God. Because it feels like some overarching energy is running their life that they don't have a say in. But that's not my understanding of God. That's not how I see God. I see God as this unifying energy that's just part of the fabric of the cosmos. So God is sort of just like interwoven intelligently into everything, including you, including me, including atheists, including whoever. Now, the difference between the person who doesn't have any sort of spiritual inclination and the person who does is that they're aware that God is interwoven into the fabric of reality. That's the only difference, really. So back to this question, why do we have to exist? And as I clarified before, it's not a negative question. It's not meant to be negative. But it seems like the one who's asking it is the small s self, the one that feels like trapped, like a fly in a spider web or something like this. So for some people, they maybe view God like the spider web, and you as the fly is the ego, or something like this. It reminds me of a Ramana quote that says, "As long as you believe there is a world, your mind will always be after it." And I was kind of contemplating that, like, what does that even mean exactly? What is it trying to say? The first thing that comes to mind is that we confuse the form with the formless. So there's this animating energy or principle or something behind everything. Sydney Banks called it the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. These are like the facts, the underlying unseen facts behind the forms. And some people would say, oh, that's, that's all great, but it hasn't changed my situation. And I would say, give it time and give it space. So instead of seeing change as being a part of the appearances, see change as a part of the inner feeling state and the frequency meaning like how often it occurs, frequency of happiness. And you might notice that as you give your attention back to this unseen reality over and over again, and remember that thought is the simplicity, you'll notice that you're just happier more often. So let that be a barometer of so-called success. Happier more often. In fact, I would say even if you just had a little sheet of paper in your pocket and you pulled it out every once in a while that said something like, the experience of happiness is occurring more often than it used to. That would already lift up your feeling state, because now you're noticing, oh yeah, I do feel happier more often. That is true. So in a previous video where I said things have gotten worse, I was speaking more on the worldly plane perspective. Overall, things have gotten better in the sense that agitating sensations have receded into the background. And negative thoughts aren't able to stick anymore. They just kind of bounce off. Things are able to be seen for what they are, not what I would wish them to be or otherwise. More and more. As the consciousness level rises and the feeling, a nice feeling happens more often. And there's like a silence and a peace in that is unparalleled. It takes you beyond the world. It takes you beyond the body. It takes you beyond the senses. And not in a dissociative way, just in a very immediate, imminent way, where you're like ultra present to the beauty of life, the ordinary beauty of life that shimmers through or is apparently shining all the time. And then the question, why do we have to exist, doesn't even take hold anymore. It's just, woo, it's gone.